Christmas ornament that I am making from junk is a lid off of a glass jar that I pulled out of the recycling bin. We're going to turn this into a beautiful Christmas ornament with stuff that I already have in my craft room. I've drilled a hole in the top of the lid, and now I'm going to put a fringe around the outside. I cut a piece of string to go around the lid twice that size, and then I cut a whole bunch of smaller pieces to create the fringe with, and I'm just using a knot to attach it all to that twine. It's going to take a lot of those little pieces, so I've cut a whole bunch and I'm going to attach them all onto that longer piece of twine until it goes all around the outside of that jar lid. I've got all those short pieces attached to that longer piece of twine, fits around the outside of that lid. Now I'm just going to cut them down so they're a little bit shorter and they're all the same length. I've got a piece of cardboard and I'm going to trace out a circle the same size as the lid, but when we cut it out, we're going to cut it out a little bit smaller so it'll fit on the inside of that lid. Now my lid was already black, but if yours is a different color and it has words or lettering on it, you can spray paint it with a spray paint that is a paint and primer in one, and it'll adhere really well to that lid. Now I've got a piece of scrapbook paper that I printed Merry Christmas on. I sized it so it would fit right inside of that circle, and I'm going to cut that out the same size as a piece of cardboard. All the graphics that I'm using in today's projects are available in my Etsy store. If you want to grab them, I'll put the link down below in the description. Now we're going to put in the piece of cardboard, and then we're also going to put in that piece of scrapbooking paper on top. Now I also forgot to show you, I put a piece of twine in the top and glued it down into that hole that we drilled in the top, so it turned it into an ornament and we can hang it on our tree. Now I'm going to add a piece of twine around the inside of that jar lid. It just finishes it off nice. And now we're ready to put the fringe all around the outside. Again, we're going to use our hot glue gun and we're going to glue it around the outside of that lid. I think just adding that little extra touch of the fringe just makes it look a lot more beautiful. And this is what we created out of a jar lid from our recycling bin. Old cupboard door that I found in the dump in the wood pile. Beautiful wood, sturdy door, still has the hinges on it, but I needed to brighten it up a little bit. So I painted it with some black chalk paint, did my candle wax technique to distress it a little bit, put on some white chalk paint, and now we're going to add a graphic doing my Mod Podge reverse graphic transfer method. You've seen me do this lots if you follow along here on my channel. I've printed this off on my laser jet printer, making sure to reverse the text, putting on my Mod Podge mat, and then putting it down on my project, making sure all the bubbles and wrinkles are gone, and letting it sit for 24 hours. All the graphics that I'm using for today's projects are available in my Etsy store. I'll put a link down below in the description, and you can head over there after the video and check them out and see if there's any graphics that you like. I am wetting it with a little bit of water and a damp rag, and then I'm rubbing off all of the paper. Make sure you're using a really cheap computer paper. You don't want thick paper because it just means that you have to rub off more paper. And I don't have a color laser jet printer, and sometimes I just like to add a pop of color. So I'm just taking some acrylic paint and dry brushing right onto the letters, taking a little napkin, wiping away the extra paint, and you've perked up that graphic, giving it some brightness with some paint. I just love being able to do this. Dry brushing on some red onto the little car. I think it really makes this graphic pop. I love the result of it. After everything has dried really well, I'm going to seal it up with a spray polyacrylic sealer, and I've taken this cabinet door that I found in the dump and upcycled it into this beautiful framed Christmas sign that I made with some chalk paint, some Mod Podge, and my printer. Next project I'm going to do, our next Christmas ornament made from just junk. These are actually slats from a shutter that was broken that I found in the dump. I saved all of the slats, and we're going to turn them into beautiful Christmas ornaments using Scrabble tiles. I had a game that was missing some parts. I had it tucked away, and I knew today's project would be perfect to use some of these. I painted the slats with some homemade white chalk paint, and then I distressed them all around the edges, and then I just picked out some Christmas words and I spaced them evenly along those slats and glued them down with some hot glue. Now, to make a hanger for these ornaments, I had a pair of flannel pajama pants that were ruined, so I washed them up and then I cut them into strips, and they turn into great pieces of ribbon to use for your Christmas projects. I tied them on the top, added a little bit of greenery. Some I painted, some I didn't. These turned out absolutely beautiful, and I love them, and they're so easy to create. I love this upcycle. I had a whole bunch of really old clothespins on my clothesline that were not any good anymore. So I took them all off of my clothesline, collected them all up, took the spring out of them, and I had this snowflake that I picked up at the dollar store a long time ago, painted it with some blue acrylic paint, put on some Mod Podge, sprinkled it with some sparkle, and then I took those clothespins and I took two of them and hot glued them together. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these put together, and I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue, and we're going to attach them in this pattern. I have them all glued together. We're going to add a hanger on the back. I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue and glue that piece of twine on, and I glued on my snowflake. And isn't this gorgeous? It has a real primitive feel that I absolutely love. If you've been following along, you know I have hordes of spindles that were given to me from a friend. So I'm always trying to find upcycles that I can use some of these spindles up. We're going to make some Christmas ornaments with some of these pieces. I drilled a hole in the top, and I also drilled a hole in the side to show you two different ways that you can do this. Painted it with some of my acrylic paint, chalk paint. I used a couple different colors, let it dry, and then I distressed it with a little bit of sandpaper. I had these circle eyelet screws, and I'm just screwing them in the top. And if you want to get them really tight in there, put the end of a paintbrush in there and twist it around. It'll tighten it right up so it stays in really well. And then I also had some old wire that was kind of rusty that I'm also going to add as the top of this spindle. I pushed each end through those holes that I drilled, and I'm just going to fold them around and tuck them back into the drilled holes so we create a really pretty hanger. This is another really simple DIY, and these actually sell really well for me over the Christmas holidays. So if you're looking for a way to make a little bit of extra cash and you have some spindles, put some of these ornaments together. I just put some twine through the other ones with the eyelets, and I just love, again, that primitive feel of these spindles. And what's even better is they were all given to me for free, and I was able to make some beautiful Christmas ornaments from just some junk. I had an old book that I picked up at a yard sale. It was damaged. The cover wasn't any good, but I tucked away the pages because I knew I would be able to put together a project with it. I'm going to make a template with a piece of computer paper. Now, this is just a lid off of a shampoo jar. I'm using it because I'm not very good at freehand, so it just kind of gives me that ability to make a nice circle. So I'm going to draw 3 circles along this piece of paper. And you can do any design that you like for this. And then I'm just going to cut it out with a pair of scissors. And then we're going to put it onto our book pages. And we're going to use this as a template to cut out a whole bunch of pieces. Now I've just taken out enough book pages that I know I can comfortably cut through. I'm going to lay that template on top after that page is folded in half and cut those pieces out of the book page. Make sure you're using a sharp pair of scissors. Just cut around that template on the book page, and we're going to need a whole bunch of these. So we're going to cut this out, and then we're going to get some more pages and do a whole lot because we want our ornament to be really full. Okay, we have a whole bunch cut out. Now we're going to glue them together. I'm using a glue stick, and you want to make sure you're putting your glue stick right to the edges of the paper. You don't want it coming apart. And then we're going to just stack up all of those pieces. And if you don't have an old book that you can use any sort of scrap paper that you have laying around and create beautiful ornaments. Okay, so I have them all glued together now. We're going to take the front piece and the back piece and we're going to glue that together. Again, making sure you're using lots of glue stick. You can also use Mod Podge or any other type of glue that you have and get it right out to the edge. Press those two together really well and make sure that they're really glued down nice and tight. Now we're going to give this a little bit of a honeycomb effect. I've got my hot glue gun and I'm putting a dot of glue at the top circle and a dot of glue at the bottom circle. And then we're going to flip over to the next section and put a dot on the middle circle. And we're going to alternate back and forth until we've done every page. Once we have them all glued together, you can see that it's starting to take shape and it's just gorgeous. We're going to add a little bit of ribbon in the top and some greenery, and we've created a really beautiful Christmas ornament with free pages that I had out of an old book. And like I said before, you can use any type of paper to make this ornament. Next DIY is so much fun, and this is a great one to do with kids. We're back to the clothespins again. We're going to take the spring out and then we're going to glue those two pieces together with the hot glue gun. Now I'm going to make two of these adorable ornaments. I got out my acrylic paint and I'm going to completely paint them in white. And then I got my black acrylic paint and I'm using the end of my paintbrush. I've dipped it in the black paint and we're going to put 2 dots on the top of those clothespins. I'm not very good at freehand, so this is a great little trick if you aren't either. And then I'm going to put 3 dots along the bottom of those clothespins. I took a piece of wire, I put a little twist in the top of it, and I put the wire through that little hole in the middle, twisting it around again there, and just kind of play with it until it looks nice. Now we're going to use that flannel again that I used from those pair of pajamas, and I ripped them into ribbon. And we're just going to tie a little piece around the neck of our snowman. And that's it to create really adorable snowman ornaments that are fantastic to do with your kids. It's such an easy DIY. And how cute will these look hung from your Christmas tree? Next project, I'm using some scrap MDF or press board. I actually get this at my Home Depot. They have a bin where you can pick up scrap pieces of wood and it's all free. So I always grab it when I see it because you can always use it to turn it into ornaments. Gonna do my Mod Podge reverse graphic transfer method. You've seen me do this lots. I've printed off these graphics on my LaserJet printer using Mod Podge, and I've sized them for each of these pieces of wood. If you make these graphics yourself, you have to make sure that you reverse the text, or when you do this technique, your lettering will be backwards. All of these graphics are available in my Etsy store, and again, I'll put the link down below in the description, and you can grab them if you want to make some of these for yourself. I let these sit overnight. It's been 24 hours. I'm taking a little rag with a little bit of water on them, dampening it so you can just start to see the graphics show through, and then we're going to rub off all the paper, and the graphics are going to be left on your ornaments. These are perfect to hang on your tree, but you can also add them to your gifts as little tags, and you can write names on the back. So many possibilities. Now I've got all the paper rubbed off. We're going to seal them up with some water-based polyurethane, and they're ready to hang on our tree or to attach to a gift. I hope you've enjoyed all of today's Christmas ornaments that I've made with stuff that I've already had around my house and out of junk. Been to the store and bought a card lately, you will know how expensive they are. So I always love making my own to save a little bit of money. Plus, I think people appreciate a homemade card more than a store-bought one. I'm going to show you today how I'm making my Christmas cards this season, and I've designed some graphics and card and envelope templates which are available in my Etsy store. I've taken some of my favorite Christmas graphics and turned them into greeting cards. The first card that I'm making is on some scrapbook paper that I've coffee stained. and I've printed off my greeting card template on the first piece of scrapbooking paper. I've just cut it down to a size of computer paper and then put it through my printer and printed off the card template. And then I just fold it in half after I've printed it off on the template, and you have a greeting card ready to go. I'll have the link down below in the description to my Etsy store so you can have a look at these cards and pick out your favorite ones and try these DIYs. Now I need to make the envelope for the card. So I have my envelope template and I'm cutting it out, and then I'm going to put it on top of another piece of scrapbooking paper, cut out my card, and then fold along all of those lines from the template. And you can print off this card template and envelope template as many times as you want, make as many cards as you want, and just get creative with different types of paper and materials putting these greeting cards together. And you can see you just fold along those lines, and when we're all finished, that greeting card that we made will fit right in that envelope. I love using a bone folder. It just makes everything lay a lot better if you can press it down and make a nice crisp line. And this crafting glue for paper DIYs, fantastic. I'm just gonna add a little bit along the edge of that envelope template, fold it together, and we're all finished. I'm gonna age the edges a little bit. I've got some ink and I'm just going to brush it along just to kind of give it that rustic feel. And then the envelope, you can write the name on the front of it, put your card in, add a little note for your receiver, and you've got a Christmas card all ready to go. Affordable card that you can put together with your kids, and somebody will really love getting it. Now, if you want to seal it up, I just like using my glue stick. Just put a little bit of glue stick along the edge and it will fold right up. Now we're going to take that envelope template again. I had this piece of sheet music in my scrap paper. We're going to turn that into an envelope, and then you can put a little gift card in it if you would like, or you can put another greeting card in it. And easy way to create a one-of-a-kind envelope. You can also add these to your junk journaling, scrapbooking, or your mixed media projects also. For this one, I just left the template on that sheet music and folded along the lines of the template, and it just made it easier to know exactly where to fold it. Got out my bone folder, made some nice crisp lines, then you can take it all apart and your envelope is ready to put together with a little bit of glue. Now I've got some coffee stained lined paper. I'm gonna turn this into a greeting card. Using my envelope template, I'm folding it all in, taking it apart, then I'm gonna glue it, and we've got our envelope ready. And now I'm going to print off a greeting card from one of my graphics, cut around the lines where it needs to be cut, and it's ready to put into our envelope. Add a little Christmas note to it. Put some glue stick along the top, or you can put a little sticker, or even if you have some wax seals, that would be beautiful. And here's another idea that you can do with some of these greeting cards. I have one napkin and one piece of computer paper. I'm going to take that napkin down to 1 ply. I want that top ply where the pattern of the poinsettias are, and we're going to save the white piece because I always turn them into custom napkins. We're going to get some saran wrap or cling wrap and rip off a piece a little bit bigger than the sheet of computer paper. Cutting around the edges so we don't have too much hanging off. And then we're going to, when we're all finished cutting it out, get that 1 ply of napkin and lay it on top of that saran wrap, making sure that it's nice and even on that piece of computer paper. Put some parchment paper over top of it, and then I'm gonna iron it on my highest setting with no steam, and that cling wrap is going to melt into the napkin and into that paper and bond to it. And we've created a beautiful piece of paper that we can turn into an envelope or a greeting card. I'm laying my envelope template in the middle of that paper and I'm cutting around the lines. And when we're all finished, we're going to be able to put this envelope together that's going to have the beautiful pattern from the napkin on a piece of paper. And how beautiful is that? We're going to fold it up, use our bone folders, some glue. I'm actually putting the pattern on the outside, but you can also do it on the inside if you want to mail this. And you'd have the poinsettia on the inside and the white on the outside. Printed off my greeting card, and you can put that inside. You've got an affordable Christmas card that you've made yourself that somebody would love to get. Now, if you've been following along, you saw that I did some faux homemade paper. I love this. It's gorgeous and it turns into beautiful paper. We're going to turn that into a greeting card, cutting out my envelope template on that faux handmade paper, folding it all up, printed off a card on some coffee stained paper, and we've got a DIY Christmas card put together. And it's beautiful. And like I said before, all of these templates for the cards and the envelopes are available in my Etsy store. I'll put the link down below in the description. You can check them out. You can make as many as you want. You can give them as gifts. You can put some together and sell them. Whatever you would like to do with these templates is perfect. I've set it up in my Etsy store so you can just buy the envelope template, or you can buy the greeting card and envelope template together. Have a look around, see what you like, and then you can get crafting with these. And I've taken all of the hard work of the measuring and what size you need and put them all together. So now I had all the scrap pieces left over from when I cut. I don't get rid of any of that. I have this tag punch, so I cut a lot of the extra little bits and pieces into tags that we can add to our Christmas gifts, or you can set aside and add to birthday, anniversary gifts, or add to your DIYs. I never throw out any of my fancy paper. I use up as much as I can. I'm actually going to put some tags together with some of the scrapbooking paper and the faux homemade paper and glue some of them together, punch some holes in the top, add some twine, and we've created beautiful hang tags. So I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial and I've inspired you to make some of your own DIY Christmas cards. I've got a whole collection of goodies here from either the thrift store or the dollar store, and I'm going to put together a really fun hot chocolate basket. This is going to make a fantastic gift for Christmas. And I'm just going to show you some of the stuff that I've got that I'm going to put together in the basket. I picked up these little spoons at the dollar store, Dollarama. They were $3.50. Some candy canes, a nice fluffy pair of gloves. I picked up a scarf at the thrift store. I've washed it. It's nice and clean and pressed. And I also picked up this basket at the thrift store. I've got some hot chocolate. I've got some cookies, some marshmallows, some little bags, and a cookie jar that I picked up at the dollar store, some vintage mugs that I picked up at the thrift store, and this adorable little mug I picked up at the thrift store for 49 cents. And I've also got a piece of wood that I'm going to put a sign on. So let's get started and put this basket together. I've just got a scrap piece of wood. It's just a piece of pine, painted it with my homemade stain in brown, and then I put a coat of my white homemade chalk paint on top. And this is the graphic that I designed. Hot chocolate served here. This is the graphic, and I had to print it out reversed to do the Mod Podge reverse graphic transfer. That's the type of sign that I'm going to make. So I'm going to do the Mod Podge reverse graphic. If you've been following along, you know that I love that way to make signs. Reversed it, regular computer paper, and I'm just going to put on just a light coat over the whole graphic, and then we're going to set it aside, let it sit overnight and dry, and then once it's dry the next day, we're going to rub the paper off and we're going to be left with a fantastic hot chocolate sign. The sign has sat overnight. I'm just going to take a little rag with some water and just dampen it so you can just start to see the graphics show through, and then we're going to rub off the paper. It's all finished, and I just sealed it up with some polyacrylic sealer. It's ready to go into our basket. This is a graphic that I'm going to use to put on my cookie jar. All these graphics that I'm using today are available in my Etsy store. If you go down to the description at the end of the video, you can click on the link and you can check them out. And make sure you use the code SAVE50 because you can get 50% off all of my graphics in my Etsy store, and I have all kinds of really cute Christmas ones. I'm going to send this to my Explorer 3 and get cutting it so I can put it on my cookie jar. I got the graphics all done on the cookie jar, and the lettering at the bottom was a little bit too small to read, so I cut that out and I just used this portion and the flourish, and I'm going to fill it up with a couple cookies. I think these are going to make perfect hot chocolate mugs. They're vintage from the thrift store. They were, I think, 75 cents each, and I love them. This is a graphic that I'm going to use on the mugs, hot chocolate. I've put it in my design space, and now I'm going to send it to my Explorer 3 cutter and get them cut and put them on the mugs. So I've taken just a plain, boring, vintage mug, and I think it's adorable now. So make sure if you're out in the thrift stores, you look for those old mugs that maybe don't have a lot of character until you put a graphic on it. Now this cute little mug, I'm going to turn it into a candle. I'm going to put a really cute little snowflake on the front, and I'm going to take it outside and spray paint it black. I've picked out a little snowflake graphic. I've put it in design space, and I'm going to send it to my Cricut to cut it for my little candle that I'm going to make. I got the little cup all spray painted black, and this is just perfect. The votive fits right in there for a little candle, and I cut a little snowflake on my Cricut to put on the front of the mug. I'm just gonna put the little snowflake on, just center it right where I want it, and it's gonna look so cute in that little basket with all the hot chocolate goodies. Peel off the transfer tape. Look at that, a little candle holder. Now we're ready to put everything all together. I'm gonna take the scarf and just kind of drape it so it looks nice and pretty in the basket. And then I'm going to add the cookie jar, and we've got these, our hot chocolate mugs. I'm gonna take a couple of these packets that I bought at the dollar store and add them into the hot chocolate mug. And then one of the little spoons that I picked up, and just kind of set it in the little mug. Oh, I didn't realize we've got 4 in there, so I can do another project. I thought there was only 2. We're gonna add another little mug, put a couple more of the hot chocolate packets in that with a little spoon. We're gonna tuck in the little gloves, the nice feathery gloves that'll be nice and cozy to drink your hot chocolate with, and maybe just nestle it in behind. I'm gonna add a couple candy canes in each mug. And I think that finishes off the mugs really cute. I'm gonna add my little votive candle right in here. And I'm gonna tuck my sign in behind the little cookies. Just tuck it in there behind the gloves. That looks really cute. And to finish it off, we're gonna add some marshmallows. I picked up these little cookie bags and I thought they'd be perfect. I don't want to put a whole bag of marshmallows in the basket. I just want to put a couple. So I'm going to take one of these bags and I'm just going to add 4 marshmallows, So, who wants little marshmallows? You always want the big ones. Put them in the bag so they'll look nice and pretty. And then I got a little bit of twine, and I'm just gonna tie a piece of twine at the top. Just tie a knot. And then I'm gonna cut off the extra cellophane at the top. So you have a cute little bag of marshmallows, and you can add that in your little basket too. And there you have a perfect Christmas gift, really affordable, that anybody can do. I just love making these gift baskets, and I added up all the costs to make the basket, and it came to about $22. But I have leftover hot chocolate, I have leftover marshmallows, I have leftover cookies, I have 2 leftover spoons, leftover candy canes. So I have enough to make another couple baskets, and I think it is perfect to give to a grandma, a teacher, friends, and it's so easy to do. If you like this graphic, you can also grab it in my Etsy store and make a sign for yourself. Another DIY that I love to give as a gift are my scrap wood signs. If you've been following along here for a while, you know that I love making these, and they make perfect, affordable Christmas gifts. I've printed off this graphic on my LaserJet printer, making sure to reverse the text, and I'm just using a scrap piece of wood that I've painted with some homemade chalk paint. Making sure that the graphic is exactly where I want it, making sure there's no bubbles and wrinkles, and then setting it aside for 24 hours. Then I'm dampening it with a little bit of water and then rubbing off the paper, and the graphics are going to be left on our scrap piece of wood. These make perfect little stocking stuffers, or you can add them into another gift to finish it off. This is another DIY that I love to do at Christmas time, making personalized ornaments with air dry clay. You're going to need a couple wooden slats, a couple pieces of wire, and I've got some parchment paper. We're going to get out our air dry clay. I love using these wooden slats because when you put them beside your air dry clay when you're rolling, it makes sure that it's even all the way across. I just pick up my air dry clay at the dollar store, and it works really well for me. Once I have it all rolled, I have a mason jar lid, and I'm cutting out a circle. We want to have a nice smooth edge around that circle, so I just dip my finger in a little bit of water and smooth it out. Now those little pieces of wire, they're going to turn into a hanger, so I've just poked them through the top of that circle. And I'm going to make 4 of these. Now I've set them aside, and I'm going to let them dry, and it takes usually overnight depending on your heat and humidity. Now that they're all dry, I'm painting them with some of my black homemade chalk paint, letting them dry, and then putting some white homemade chalk paint on top of that. I've printed off some photos and some quotes on my LaserJet printer, and I'm just tracing around my circles. I have a picture of my mom and dad, and my son and his wife, and a couple quotes. Now, just like we did our signs, you can also do the same transfer method onto air dry clay when it's dry. We're going to put that onto our ornament exactly where we want it, get out any bubbles and wrinkles, and then set it aside and let it dry for 24 hours. Now, once we've gotten all the paper rubbed off, I'm just going to take a little bit of sandpaper and just give it a rustic feel all around the edges, seal it up with some polyacrylic sealer, add a ribbon on the top, and we've made really cute, adorable, personalized ornaments with some air dry clay that are affordable gifts. Going to upcycle this old VHS cassette holder. The tape was missing, so we're going to work with the paper insert from inside. I'm going to cut the spine away from the front and the back. I'm sure at some point you've had a VHS cassette holder where the tape was missing and you just ended up throwing it out. I'm going to show you how you can create a beautiful gift with these paper inserts. So now I've got the 3 pieces cut out. We are going to get our page protector. I picked this up at the dollar store. It's just clear film, and I'm going to cut it to size and cover the front and the back pieces. If you don't have any of this page protector, you can also use packing tape and just layer it across the top and then trim around the edges. Once I have everything covered with the page protector, this middle spine piece is going to turn into a little bookmark. So I've cut some scrapbooking paper to glue onto the back of that, and we're going to put it all together. Now, once we have everything all covered with that page protector, we're going to turn this into a little journal. I have just recently bought this spiral book binder off of Amazon. Absolutely love it. I am turning everything into little notebooks and journals and junk journals. I'll put the link down below in the description for this one that I have. The possibilities are endless for making paper projects with this. So I've just cut the holes in it for the spiral to go through, and I have this little corner punch that I like to use. It just finishes off the edges really nice and rounds them. We're going to use some lined paper for this project. I had some left over in a binder, and we're just going to cut it to size to fit in between these 2 pieces from the VHS cassette covers. And once I had them cut to size, I put them in the punch and put the holes in for the spiral binder for it also. Now we're ready to put it all together, but first we're going to turn that middle spine into a bookmark. I have a brad. We're going to place it in the top, and I thought I wanted it a little bit shorter, so I cut off the Grinch. We'll keep that for another project. Added the brad and a little piece of ribbon. And now we're ready to put the spiral binding in this little journal. After the holes are punched, it just spirals right through. So easy, and you've created a journal in a couple easy steps. Trim off the ends with a little pair of pliers. And we have created a beautiful journal from a VHS cassette holder that was missing the tape. My daughter is absolutely going to love this. Now we have the clamshell case left over. We're going to upcycle it. I'm going to cut a piece of paper the same width as the clamshell, and we're going to print on it. I put it through my printer and printed this beautiful graphic. The graphic's available in my Etsy store. If you want to grab it, I'll put the link down below in the description. Because we had to cut it the same size as a sheet of paper, it didn't quite fit to the end. So I cut another little strip to put in there, and it matched up perfectly, and we wouldn't even know that it was too short. So now we have a clamshell container that you can fill with little trinkets or a little gift. And it's an original, one-of-a-kind gift box that I'm sure somebody would love to receive. So we have upcycled that VHS container into a little journal a bookmark, and a little gift box to give to someone for Christmas. Round wooden circle that I had in my stash forever, and we're going to paint it with some black chalk. Let it dry completely, and then we're going to put some candle wax around the outside. I love this candle wax distressing technique. It just creates chippy, old looking wood. Then I'm going to put on some green acrylic paint, some more candle wax, some red, some more candle wax, and then finish it off with some white. Dry it, scrape away at it, and you're left with this beautiful vintage looking painted surface. Now I want this circle to be raised up a little bit, so I've got this piece of 2x4. We're going to glue it to the bottom of that wooden circle and then paint everything black underneath. Now I'm going to add my graphic to this using my Mod Podge reverse graphic transfer method. Printing this off on my LaserJet printer, making sure to reverse it, and then adding it onto the circle, letting it sit for 24 hours, and then dampening it with a little bit of paper. Rubbing off the paper, we've got a beautiful graphic that we can leave out for Santa so he can have a cookie, some carrots for his reindeer set out. Now I'm going to put 2 little handles on either side, and I'm going to glue them on with some E6000. And this is a cute little tray that we've created to put out on Christmas Eve for Santa. Dollar store tray and a couple things that I picked up at the thrift store. Breaking out my Cricut for this, we're putting on some permanent vinyl on these pieces, and we're going to clean everything up with some rubbing alcohol and then apply the graphics. For the little bowl, I've gotten this carrot graphic. We're going to lay it right on the front and then make sure we've got it pressed down really well. Peel off that transfer tape, and then we have carrots left on our little bowl. Then we're going to add milk onto a little cup, and same thing, the transfer tape, rub it, pull the transfer tape away, and then we're going to add a cookies graphic on this little cookie container. And for the tray, I printed off a Merry Christmas on the and then take the transfer tape off, and we have that left on the tray. And we have another different idea to leave treats out for Santa on Christmas Eve. The first candle we're going to make is with one of these little mason jars. I always save these and the lids, and they make fantastic DIY candles that you can make yourself. I picked up a bunch of these taper candles at the Value Village. They were $2.99. It was a full box of the 10-inch taper candles. I'm going to melt these down and make them into new candles. When I'm melting wax to make my own candles, I just like to use a tin can, and I've broken down these candles into more manageable size. Put them in the tin can, and you can reuse this wick also when we're making our new candle. So we're going to melt this down on our stovetop. I just put my tin can in a saucepan, nothing in it, and I just put the setting on my stove at about 3 or 4, just a really slow heat. And as you can see, it just starts to melt the candles really slowly. You don't want to put it on too high because you don't want to scorch it. And just let them melt away. I like to use a tin can when I'm melting wax. That way, when I'm finished with it, I can just throw it out and start with a new one when I do another project, and I'm not wrecking any of my saucepans. I've got the candle wax all melted, and I'm just keeping it on a hot plate. Be very, very careful. Obviously, it's hot wax. We don't want anyone to get burnt. I've got my little container, and I've saved all the little wicks that I melted out of the candle because you can use these on other candles. Just pick one that's going to kind of fit into your jar. I'm going to use this longer one, and you're going to get a skewer, and I just like to wrap the candle wax around it until it's the length that I want. Set it in your jar right in the center, and then you can pour your wax around it, and you have a wick. Now, these candles that I melted down didn't have any scent, and I want to make them kind of smell pretty, so I've just got some essential oil. I think this is eucalyptus. I'm just going to put, for this size, probably 5 to 7 drops. And then I'm going to take a skewer and just stir it right in really well. Already smells so good. And then you're just going to very carefully pour it into your jar. Now this isn't too hot anymore. It's kind of cooled down a little bit so I can pick the tin up. I've got some parchment paper so I'm not wrecking my table. And you're just gonna really slowly just pour it into that little mason jar. fill it up right to where you want it. Make sure your wick is centered, set it aside, and you have a perfect candle that makes an amazing gift. My little mason jar candle is all set. I'm gonna cut the wick. And I've got some vintage wrapping paper. I'm going to cut out a portion of it. I like this little flower here. I'm just gonna trace it around with a little pen. Cut out the circle. And then I'm just gonna add it to the top of the lid. I'm gonna glue it with my glue stick. And it just kind of takes that little mason jar to the next cuteness level of my glue stick. And stick that vintage piece of wrapping paper on the top of that lid. And then I'm going to put the ring on it. And that looks so pretty. And then you have a nice lid for your top of your candle. Finished up those little jars of jam and jelly, set them aside, save some wax, and make little candles. Next candle I'm going to make, I picked up this little tin at the thrift store. It was full of little coasters. I'm going to take the coasters out, use it for another project, and I paid $1.49, and I think they were 75% off, so it was a really good deal. But I want to turn it into a candle. I want to make the candle in this green. I had this old candle, jar was really yucky, was almost burnt out. I'm going to chunk up the wax that's in here, but I don't have enough to fill the container, so I'm also going to melt down some of these paper candles that I've had that I've been burning, but I can use up. And the trick to make it even more green is to melt a little bit of crayon in it. I've got some green crayon. I'm going to put that in there to melt it all up, and it's going to make a beautiful brand new candle. I'm going to use a new tin can. I'm going to break up a few pieces of that crayon. I've taken the paper off. Actually, I'm probably going to use the whole crayon. Put it in the tin can, and then I'm just going to take my scissors and chunk up all the wax that's in this one that was really yucky and add it into the tin can. And just dump it all in there. Don't worry about the wick that's in there. We can always fish that out afterwards, after it's all melted. I never throw out any of my little bits and pieces of wax. I always save them for projects exactly like this. And I won't throw out this glass jar either. I'll clean it all up, and I might make it into a candle later on. And that's probably still not quite enough wax to fill it up. So I'm gonna break up some of these and melt them down too. And we should have enough to fill up our little container. I actually switched it all to a bigger tin can because it couldn't hold enough to fill up this candle holder. So we're gonna go down to the stove and we're gonna start melting this, and we'll see that lovely green color all come together. I've got it all set up on the stove on medium heat. I'm just gonna let it just kind of heat away and melt all of that wax. This is melting really nicely, and it's a fantastic green color just with that little bit of that green crayon. Oh, my green wax is all melted. I've just got a little skewer. I saved the wick from one of the white pillar candles or the tapered candles. And again, I'm just gonna wrap it around until it's the length that I want, that'll touch the bottom. If you have wicks, you can use your wicks that you already bought. I just don't like to waste anything, so I try to use up as much that I can from every project that I'm doing. I've got some parchment paper down. My wick is centered right in the middle of that little tin container, and we're ready to pour the wax in. It's still a little bit hot, so I'm going to use my tea towel and be really careful when I'm pouring it in. Now, I didn't add any scent in this one because the green candle that I used that was almost gone had a really strong pine smell, and as I was melting it, I could still really smell it. So I just want to leave it as that scent. And I'm just gonna slowly pour in that green wax. And it's such a beautiful color. Just adding a little bit of that green crayon was a perfect touch. I'm gonna set it aside and let it harden up really well. This one's all finished. I'm just gonna cut the wick, put the lid on, and it's ready to give as a gift. Next candle that I'm going to make that make fantastic gifts. I always find these wooden bowls at the thrift store, always pick them up. I like to paint them and I can put transfers on the inside, or I like to make them into candles. I had some of these wooden wicks that I had purchased quite a while ago, a whole pack of them, and I'm going to use that in the middle of this candle. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom of it just to hold it in place right in the center. And then we're going to get our wax ready. Okay, I have this one all ready. I'm going to just leave it the white color. I think that's going to look really nice with the wooden bowl. So I'm going to go down and heat it up. Got it on medium heat and just letting that wax melt down slowly. Now I've decided I want the wax to have a really white color. And when I melted it, it kind of went a clear. So I'm going to add just a little bit of the white crayon, just to give it a little bit more of a white color. It's still really hot, so it'll melt in there if I stir it with my little stir stick for a few minutes. I don't need to add very much, just a little. And I think it'll just make it a little bit of a brighter white. That's probably enough. And then I'm just going to take my skewer and just stir it and make sure that that crayon just melts really well. The white crayon has completely melted and my candles didn't have any scent, so I'm going to add some essential oil, lavender. I'm going to add probably about 5 drops. Stir it really well so it incorporates, and then we're ready to put it into the wooden bowl. I'm just going to really carefully, the tin can is a little bit warm, just going to pour it really slowly into that wooden bowl. And fill it up to the level that I think it's going to look really nice. Now, if you have bigger bowls or bigger containers, you can use more than one wick. This is a pretty small container or small bowl, so the one wick I think will be perfect. All finished. I'm going to let it sit aside for a little bit, and then once it starts to solid up a little bit, I have a few little sprigs of cedar that I want to add into it, and I think that'll look really nice and really Christmassy. So, but I'm going to let it set up a little bit. Now I got busy melting some other wax and this set up a little bit too much for me. So I've set these boughs in here and I'm just going to take my heat gun and just kind of heat it up a little bit and melt it into that wax. I had too many things on the go and I was multitasking, but this works perfect. I'm just going to melt it just into that top layer of wax, and it just adds a really nice kind of effect and touch to that wooden bowl. And now that I've got that melted a little bit, it's worked perfect. I can just take my skewer and just kind of press it down right where I want it. I thought I'd messed it up, but actually I saved it with the heat gun. It worked perfect. My wooden bowl candle is completely set. I'm gonna just cut that wick. And it's all set. I had some red and green and white wax left over. Not very much, but enough to make this into a candle. This is just a little votive holder that I picked up at the dollar store. I've had it for forever and I thought it would look really nice. I'm gonna make 3 different colors. I'm gonna layer this like a Christmas candy, and I'm gonna save the wick I've got from one of the other candles that I melted. I'm gonna stick it in this little base that I saved. Waste not, want not. I don't throw anything out. Put a little bit of glue on the bottom, put it in the bottom of the votive holder, and you can use any type of glue, just something that's going to hold it in its place. That's all set. I'm going to let that harden up a little bit, and then I'm going to pour that little bit of wax in to make a really fancy candle. I've got that little bit of green wax melted that I had left over, and I'm just going to pour it really carefully into the bottom, and we're going to let that harden, and then I'm going to put the next colored wax in. That first layer of green has set up really nice, and now I'm going to put a layer of red on, and I'm not adding any scent because I have the scent left over from when I did my other candles. I'm just going to very carefully just pour all that I have on the top of that. we're gonna let that set, and then I'm gonna finish it off with a little bit of white. The red has set up nicely, and now I'm gonna finish it off with a little bit of white. Perfect amount. I've used up all of my scrap wax that I had left over from my other projects. And I have a candy cane candle. I have a little bit of candy cane that I kind of crushed up, and I'm just gonna sprinkle a few on the top just to make it look nice and pretty and festive. And we're just gonna set it aside and let it get solid. How fantastic is this? 3 colors of candle, and then the candy cane sprinkled on the top. This was so easy to do, and I just used it with all the leftover wax that I had from the other candles that I made. Pillar candle from the dollar store. I picked this up at Dollarama for $3.50, and I also picked up this tissue paper at Dollarama also. I'm going to do a little bit of a different trick on this though. We're going to put the tissue paper on the candle, but I want to customize it first. First thing I want to do is I want to cut a piece of the tissue paper the same size as a sheet of paper. So I'm just going to size it up here, cut it out the same size. And then I've got my crafter's tape and just a plain piece of computer paper. I'm just going to put some of the crafter's tape in each corner. And then we're going to put the tissue paper on that piece of paper because it's going to act as a carrier to go through our printer. And then press it right into that tissue paper. I'm going to take this down to my printer and I'm going to print out a really nice Christmassy graphic on this. And then we're going to apply it onto the candle. I've printed this off on my LaserJet printer, and you can use an inkjet printer also. And now what I want to do is I want to cut it to the exact size of the candle. And I'm going to place it, now I've placed it in my graphic right in the middle. So you have tissue paper to wrap around all of your candle, but we want to cut it down to size. So I'm going to measure the candle. We're millimeters here in Canada, so it's 16. So I want to cut. So I have 16 millimeters in my middle panel. To apply the tissue paper to the candle, you're going to need some wax paper, or you can also use parchment paper. I prefer the wax paper because it's got the waxy side to it. And you want quite a big sheet. Now you want to place your tissue paper exactly where you want it. And then you're going to lay it on the wax paper, and you want to have the waxy part of the paper on the tissue paper. You're going to wrap it really tight. You want to keep that tissue paper right in place. I like to scrunch this up, hold it really, really tight. Now we're going to use our hair dryer, and it can get really warm. So I like to use a tea towel to hang on to it. And then you're just going to start your hair dryer on a really high heat. And all finished. And that is such an easy DIY and so affordable. And you can customize it with any quote that you want. And there's so many different tissue papers that you can choose from at the dollar store. Tissue paper, and then printed on my LaserJet printer, and it created this beautiful candle. This is a perfect gift to give somebody that maybe has lost someone throughout the year, and it's a nice, thoughtful gift. The next project, I am going to do a photo on a pillar candle. Same candle that I bought at the Dollarama, and I'm going to cut this photo down to size to fit the pillar candle. This is my brother's family, and shh, don't tell them because I'm going to make this for them for Christmas. I've got it all cut to size, and it wraps right around the whole candle. Now, you don't have to print off a big photo like this. You can just do a small photo and put it in the center. I just kind of like the way that it looked wrapped all the way around. Now, when you're doing this technique, this paper is still, it's kind of thick, and it won't lay very well into the candle. So I like to do another technique before we put this on the candle. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to grab some packing tape, and we're going to remove some of that bulk off the back of this paper. What you're going to need is some packing tape and just an old credit card or plastic card. And you're just going to start at one end and just press that packing tape right into that paper And this is going to turn regular computer paper into a thinner paper, like a tissue paper or like a napkin, and make it a lot easy to apply to the candle. This also works really well for decoupaging if you want a thinner paper to decoupage with. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this tape over the whole photo. Okay, I've got all the tape down, and then we're just going to take our card and just really hard push right into that paper. Adhere that tape really well to it. You're going to start on the end of the last piece of tape that you put down. You want to be really careful. We don't want to tear this photo after we've already printed it. So you're just going to really take your time, holding down here as you pull away, and you can see all of that paper that's being taken away from the back of that photo, and it'll make it a lot easier to work with. See all that paper that's being removed? And then you're just going to go to the next strip. Again, really take your time, be really careful. We don't want to rip that photo. And just pull that tape away. And then the next one. This one's gonna be sticky. There we go. And just very carefully, just pull that away. And one more. We don't want to rip the last one. We're going to be really careful, holding down the edges as we pull. And now you've taken a regular piece of computer paper and made it nice and thin to work with. Now, it's still not quite thin enough for how I like it, so I'm going to go over it once more. I've got the paper nice and thin now, easy to work with. We're going to do the same process that I did with the snowflake candle. We're going to place it on the pillar candle, get it so it's nice and even, exactly where you want it. Then we're going to take our wax paper, and we want the wax paper, the waxy side to the inside against the photo. We're going to scrunch it right up tight, and then get the tea towel so we don't burn our hands, and work away on it with the hairdryer. If you have a special picture that you want to print out on regular computer paper, this is the technique to try it and put it on a candle. It works fantastic. I have one more pillar candle that I'm going to show you how I'm going to make. Now, this is a napkin. It's one sheet of a napkin, and I've taken a little bit of tape in each corner and put it on a piece of computer paper. I'm going to put this through my laser jet printer and print on the napkin. I've done all kinds of tutorials on how to custom make your own napkins. I'll put a link down below in the description, and you can check that out if you want to make some for yourself. I've printed my graphic off on the napkin, and now I'm just going to cut it off that piece of computer paper, leaving a little bit around the edge. And you're left with a custom napkin that you can put on the candle the exact same way that we did the others with the hairdryer. This is also a fantastic technique to decoupage with. So we're going to get some wax paper and put it on the candle. I love these techniques because you can customize so much. You can do a last name, you can do photos, you can do quotes. Anybody that receives a gift like that would just love it. So we're going to put the wax paper, again, right up tight against that graphic. Scrunch it up. We're going to get that tea towel to hang onto it, and we're going to get heating that up with the hairdryer. Once you've got that all done, you just peel off the wax paper. And amazing. I love it. Now, you have to remember, if you're using a candle that's a different color and not white, if you're using a white napkin, you're going to see the whole outline of that napkin. So the white napkin on the white candle works the best. I love custom making all of my own napkins when I can't find one in the theme that I'm looking for. This next candle DIY is so simple. All you need is some Mod Podge mat, some glitter, any colors. I'm going to use these three colors together, a little votive, and this actually is a old candle holder that I had that I'm just going to upcycle. And we're just gonna make this look like icicles. And you're just going to just kind of drip the Mod Podge all along the edge of your container. Just kind of goop it on, random lengths. A little bit thicker in some places, thinner in others. And we want it to look like little icicles. And you can use your Mod Podge mat, or you can use a gloss, whatever you have on hand. You can use your homemade Mod Podge. This will work on any of that. And you just want to make sure that you got it covered all around the rim, right to the edge. Now I want to mix the 3 glitters together, so I'm going to just put a bunch in this little plastic container, equal amounts of each color, and then we're going to kind of stir it up a little bit. And we don't want that Mod Podge to dry. We want it to stay wet so the glitter will stick to it. I'm just going to stir it all together. Such a pretty color. Use your little plate, and then you're just going to just put that glitter all over that Mod Podge. And it's going to look like beautiful little icicles. And of course, I'm going to have glitter everywhere too while I'm doing this. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to have a little bit of glitter along the top edge too. So now that I have it all along the sides, I'm going to put some Mod Podge right along that rim, all the way around. And then I'm going to pick up from the bottom, and I'm just gonna press that top of that glass into this glitter that's on the plate. Perfect. I'm gonna set this aside and let it dry really well. I think this little icicle candle turned out adorable. This would be a great DIY to do with the kids. And I just added a little votive on the inside. I sprinkled a little bit of the glitter on it too to finish it off. And I love it. An empty candle that I have burned and used up. I cleaned it all up really well. And a while back, I came across some really vintage wrapping paper, Christmas wrapping paper. I love this one. And I'm going to decoupage it on the outside of this and then make a new candle for the inside. I'm going to use my Mod Podge mat and just put a liberal amount at the beginning. Attach the paper. I like to work in sections. I don't like to do it all at once. It's easier to kind of work with. And then I like to lift it up and then keep adding the Mod Podge as I go around the container. I do have a full tutorial of beginner decoupage that would help you out if you've not decoupaged before, with the steps to make it a little bit easier for you. I'm just going to work away at this. I've added a wooden wick into the middle of this, just put a little bit of glue on the bottom just to hold it in place. And I've melted up some wax and put a little bit of a green tinge to it. I'm gonna leave this one unscented and just gonna pour that wax in there. My wick is kind of moving around a little bit, but that's okay. I can set it over where it needs to be now. And I'm just gonna set that aside and let it set up really well. This is a great way to upcycle an old candle holder that you've already used and put a brand new candle into it. A little bit of decoupaged wrapping paper, It makes a perfect gift. All kinds of DIY custom made candles. These are all so easy to create with simple ingredients and stuff that you probably already have in your home. Using some Mod Podge is this tray that I found at the thrift store. It was just a cheap silver tray. I spray painted it with some primer, and then once it was dry, I painted on top of that some white chalk paint, and then I distressed all around the edges just to have that silver pop through. Printed off my graphic on my LaserJet printer, making sure to reverse it, and now I'm putting on my Mod Podge mat. We're going to then flip it over, get all the bubbles and wrinkles out, and set it aside and let it dry for 24 hours. If you've never tried this technique, you need to give it a try. You don't need to have a Cricut or stencils to put beautiful graphics on your DIY projects. It does take a little bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, the possibilities are endless. I'm going to seal this up with some spray matte polyacrylic sealer, and I've taken this thrift store silver tray and upcycled it into a beautiful tray to display for the holidays. We all have scrap wood laying around. I never get rid of any of it because we can turn them into little ornaments or signs or shelf sitters. That's what I'm going to make with this scrap piece of wood. I've taken one of my graphics and I'm going to apply it onto this piece of scrap wood that I had that I painted with some black chalk paint, some white chalk paint, then I distressed around the edges. And we're going to let it sit for 24 hours and then rub the paper off. These make fantastic gifts and they're so affordable to make. You don't need to break the bank, giving a really thoughtful gift when you can make a custom shelf sitter like this just with some Mod Podge, paper, printer, and a scrap piece of wood. And here's another scrap piece of wood. This was just a piece of pine left over from a construction site. I did the same painting technique as the last one. Some black chalk paint, white chalk paint, distressed around the edges, applied the graphic. I'm letting it sit for 24 hours. Now, when you're doing this technique, it's never perfect. You're always gonna have little bits of the graphic they're gonna rub off, but I just think that adds to the character and it gives it that rustic feel. And again, I wanted to add a little pop of color to this one on the Christmas trees on either end. So I'm just gonna dry brush on some of that acrylic paint, just dab off the extra paint with a little bit of a napkin. And it just gives that little pop of color if you don't have a colored LaserJet printer. I love this DIY. I had a candlestick holder and an old teapot in my stash forever. I glued it together with some E6000, spray painted it with some primer that was black, and then I painted over top of that with some white chalk paint, distressed it, let that black peek through, and then I added this really cute graphic. And same process as before. All you need is a printer, Mod Podge, paint, and some paper, and you don't even need a LaserJet printer. This technique, if you're really careful, will also work with an inkjet printer, and I have a comparison video between the inkjet and the LaserJet, and you can check that out if you're having a little bit of trouble with your inkjet doing this transfer method, and it might guide you along and give you some help. I'll put the link down below to that video and you can check it out after you watch this one. And isn't this so cute? I love just rooting through my thrifted stuff that I've collected and put aside and then putting pieces together to create unique DIYs. And I think this candlestick holder and the little teapot mesh together beautifully. I'm gonna add a little pop of color to this one too, just adding some red acrylic paint to the poinsettia berries and then painting those leaves a little bit of green acrylic paint. And if it gets on too thick, I just take a little bit of a napkin and then dab off the extra and it just blends in really nicely. And I'm also gonna add a little bit of a brown to the hot chocolate mug. everything's completely dried, I'm going to seal it all up with that polyacrylic sealer. And I think this might be one of my favorite Christmas DIYs that I've made this year. And let's make another shelf sitter. I have so much scrap wood and I save a lot of it to make these during the holidays because they're my best sellers. If you're doing craft sales over the holidays, or you're selling on Marketplace, or even if you're selling on Etsy, you need to be making these shelf sitters with the graphics on them. They sell like crazy for me. I can make hundreds of them and they would all sell. And if you have the ability to make your own graphics, you can also make little customized shelf sitters. And that's a great way to make some extra cash over the holidays. Now you can see this one, some of the graphic at the top rubbed off. That will happen sometimes. It's just the texture in the wood. And I think it just gives it that vintage feel, especially with this graphic. I'm gonna add a little pop of color. And then we're going to seal it up with some polyacrylic sealer. And we've created this little shelf sitter. Simple, easy DIY. I hope you all have Mod Podge in your crafting stash. If not, head to your craft store, head to Amazon and pick up some because you need to try this technique using Mod Podge. Now, this little graphic, snowflakes, are kisses from heaven. When I am doing shelf sitters or my glass wine bottles or glass jars from the recycling bin, and I put these graphics on them to remember a lost loved one, they always sell really well during the holidays. I have quite a few in my Etsy store, different quotes and that you can turn into signs like these. And like I said before, if you're a reseller, make some of these up with these little quotes on them because they do really well. So as you can see from all of today's DIY projects, Mod Podge is a fantastic product. If you don't have any in your crafting stash, make sure you grab some and give some of these techniques a try. Today I'm going to show you how I'm going to upcycle this Tim Hortons coffee container. If you're Canadian, you know Tim Hortons. It's very popular here. I have all kinds of these canisters and I hate throwing them out. So I'm going to upcycle this one into a Christmas cookie container. I've got a scrap piece of wood that I'm going to use. I want to make a wooden top for it. So I'm going to take the lid off of the coffee canister, place it on the wood, and then draw the circle into the wood. And then I'm going to take my jigsaw and I'm going to cut that circle out. You have to just go really slow and take your time as you're cutting it out. It is a little bit hard to get around all of the corners, but hang tight. It's really going to bounce around here. My camera on the floor is not friendly with the jigsaw going. And then I'm going to take my sander and sand it all down nice and smooth. And that's going to be the wooden lid for the top of my cookie canister. I've got some Minwax wood stain. This is the golden oak. And I want to put a coat of stain on this lid that I'm going to put on the top of the coffee canister. I'm then going to take the plastic top and spray paint it with some black. And I'm also going to spray paint the bottom of the canister just with a light coat of the black also. I'm going to let it dry and then I'm going to bring it into my craft room and paint it up. Okay, my top is all dry. The stain is all dry. I want to glue this onto the top of that. I'm going to use my E6000. Let's hope it cooperates. It's starting to dry out a little bit. I need to buy another tube of it, but I think it's going to cooperate. I think I'm going to get enough out of it. I'm just going to put the E6000 all around it, and then I'm going to use my hot glue gun just to hold it in place, just to give it a little bit of an extra glue. That's perfect. And then I'm going to stick that wooden round that we made on the top. And I think I want to use this one. I'm going to make sure, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I've got it centered this way. And then just press it down really hard. And then I'm going to set it aside and let it dry really well. My canister is all dry. I just put a really light coat of the black on it, just to kind of mask up some of that red. And I've mixed up some homemade chalk paint in white and I'm just gonna paint the whole canister. First coat's all dry, and now I'm gonna put on a second coat. Now I'm gonna custom make my own Christmas napkin. This is just a napkin that I had. It's 3 ply, so I'm gonna take off the 2 plies. So I'm just left with the white sheet on the bottom. I have a full tutorial on how to custom make these napkins. I'll put a link down below in the description, and you can check that out because it's really a cool technique to custom make your own napkins if you can't find what you want to craft with. The first thing that I want to do is I want to press out all these creases in the napkin. So I've got it down on an ironing pad. I got a piece of parchment paper and lay it on top of that serviette or napkin, and then I'm just going to just iron it. I've got my iron set it on the highest setting with no steam, and that's going to get rid of all those lines in that napkin, and we'll be ready to print on it. I've got my glue tape, and I'm just going to put a little bit along the sides and in the corners, and that's just going to hold that napkin in place when we put it through the printer. And I'm just going to take the paper and just center it over the napkin, making sure there's no wrinkles, and then press it right down. And then I'm going to get my scissors and trim off all the edges, and then it's ready to print on. We're ready to load it into the computer. Make sure you're putting your napkin in so it prints on that side, and then we're ready to print. We're going to do the water transfer method. I printed off on my napkin, and I'm just going to trim it off and cut it almost to the size that we're going to need. And I love using this technique because it blends right into the paint, and there's no wait time. You just put it on and it's finished. And we're just going to take the napkin off that piece of paper. And as you can see, now we've printed our own custom napkins. Now when doing this, I've just got a plastic sleeve, and you want to put your graphic facing down. So when you pick it up, you can put it on your project. So we're going to put it face down. And then you're going to take a little bit of water. I just have a little bit of water in a dish and a little rag, and you're just going to just kind of soak that just really carefully until the napkin is completely wet. And you're just going to very carefully get any wrinkles or bubbles out. And that looks pretty good. And then what I like to do, I like to make the edges of the napkin kind of rough. You can use a really stiff paintbrush, or I found actually if I just use the edge of my scissors, I can just pull away a little bit of that napkin, just so when you're putting it on your project, it just kind of blends in better and it doesn't give that straight edged look. And then after you've done that, just take away the paper that you've pulled off and work your way around the graphic. Now we're ready to put the graphic on the coffee can. This is a little trick. It's a lint roller. If you set it on your table and press your project into it, it won't roll around and it'll stay exactly where you want it, which works perfect. We're going to put some of the matte Mod Podge. I find matte is better because it blends in. If you're using a gloss, it will show the glossy outline on your project with the chalk paint. So I like to use matte, and you're just going to put the Mod Podge where that graphic is going to lay down, and just a light coat. You don't want it too thick. And then you're going to pick up your graphic. And the nice thing about this technique is you can move it around a little bit. If you put it down and it's not exactly where you want it, you can pick it up. See how you can see you can pick it up and you can center it and put it exactly where you want it. And then just take your fingers and from the middle, push out and get all the bubbles and wrinkles out of that graphic and make sure it's laying nice and flat. And then once you've got all the bubbles and the wrinkles out, you can just very carefully lift away that plastic sheet and your graphic is on your project. I then just like to take a paintbrush and just go around the edges and press all of those little edges in and make sure it's laying nice and flat. This is such a quick and easy way to do graphics. You don't have to rub anything off. You don't have to buy any expensive vinyl. All you need is just a napkin and the bottom sheet of it. Now I printed this off on my LaserJet printer. You can also use an inkjet printer. The LaserJet printer, the ink won't run. If you're using a laser or inkjet, you may have a tendency for your ink to run a little bit. So what I would do was before you put the napkin on your project, I would spray it with a little bit of hairspray to set that ink into it. Let the hairspray dry and then do this process. I've brought the container out into my shed because I want to give it a really good top coat that you can wipe down with a damp cloth. I'm going to use this engine enamel. It works really well and gives it a really hard seal. You can find it at automotive stores. It's on Amazon, and you can also, if you're in Canada, find it at Canadian Tire. And it'll just allow you to wipe it down and be a little bit more durable if it's in the kitchen. I've taken a lid from another container and put it on the top because I don't want it to get in the inside. And I'm just going to give it a couple coats and let it dry. And then it'll be all ready to put the lid on and fill with some cookies. In order to keep the lid a little bit more secure on the piece of wood, I've got some little tiny screws, and I'm just going to put a couple. I'm going to put 3 in the lid just to keep it in place better for when you're taking the lid on and off. And I'm just going to screw them right down into through the lid into the piece of wood, and it'll just help it from peeling off in case your glue doesn't stay put. I had this old handle in my stash. I think it's going to work perfect on top of this, and I've got a couple screws, and I'm just going to screw it right into the top of the lid, make sure it's centered where I want it, and just screw it down in. You want to make sure you're picking screws that aren't going to go right through into the plastic. You just want it to stay in the wood. And there you have an upcycled coffee canister. And it was so easy to do, and I love when I can take things out of the recycling bin and make something new and pretty. I left the screws on the top, just the original color. I kind of think it gives it a nice rustic feel. I just used a scrap piece of wood that I stained for the top. Make yourself napkin graphics. So easy. So save those coffee containers and make them into some pretty Christmas decor. How you can glitter these plastic ornaments. This will also work for glass ornaments also, but you cover the inside with glitter and medium, and they look fantastic, and it's so easy to do. So today I'm going to show you a step-by-step tutorial of how you can do these yourself. I'm going to use 3 different mediums. I'm going to use a polyacrylic sealer, I'm going to use my Mod Podge, and I'm going to use my homemade Mod Podge, and we're going to compare them all, see how they all work, and mix in some glitter with it. You're going to need a few paper cups. I like these little plastic containers. They work really well for holding the medium when you're pouring it into the ornaments, and a couple sheets of computer paper. The first one that we're going to do is the polyacrylic sealer. It's a lot easier to pour this into a little dish to pour into the ornament than trying to pour it out of the big pail. So I'm just going to put some in here, enough that you think it's going to cover the ornament. Now I've just made a little paper funnel out of a piece of computer paper, just taped it together so you have the hole there. It just makes it a lot easier when you're pouring into the ornament. And just pour some of that polyacrylic right through that paper funnel. Let it drain really well. And then you're just going to take your ornament and just kind of swirl that polyacrylic all over the inside. You want it to adhere all over. Keep your little dish handy, so if it drips a little bit, you can drip it back into the cup. This polyacrylic can be kind of pricey, so we don't want to waste any. And you can see I've got it completely covered now. I'm just going to let it sit in that little cup and just drain out for a few minutes. I've let that drip for a few minutes, and now I'm going to get my paper cup and just set that in the paper cup and let it dry for about 15 or 20 minutes. You want that cloudiness to kind of go away and kind of turn translucent before we put in our glitter. The next one we're going to do is the Mod Podge, and you can use the matte or the glossy. Doesn't matter, whatever you prefer. If you're using the glossy, you're going to have more of a glossy finish on the inside. Just going to use that funnel, pour that Mod Podge right into that ornament. Now the Mod Podge is a little bit thicker than the polyacrylic sealer, so you want to make sure that you've got that really swirled around really well so it doesn't kind of go lumpy. Okay, I'm going to set that there. And again, you just swirl it around so it covers completely. And you can see this one is a little bit thicker, so it is a little bit more tricky to make sure you get it covered really well. But just be patient and just let it kind of swirl around. If you need to add a little bit more, you can always go back in. You can add your funnel, pour a little bit more in, and then just continue swirling it around. It's almost covered. Hold it over our dish so we don't make a mess. And then the same thing, after we've got this all completely covered, I'm gonna let it drain for a few minutes in here and then put it in the cup and set it aside and let it dry for 15 or 20 minutes until it starts to go translucent. I've let all the Mod Podge drip out into the little container. I'll put it back in the main one, and I'm gonna set this aside, and 15 or 20 minutes, you can start to see it kind of clear up a little bit. Now these plastic ornaments are really easy to find. I've seen them in the dollar store, Michael's, Hobby Lobby. I actually picked these up last year at the end of the season after Christmas, and I think they were 75% off, so I bought a whole bunch of them and I tucked them away to use for this year. So this one I'm going to use my homemade Mod Podge. Same thing, I'm going to make a little funnel to put some into the middle. I made a tutorial on how to make your own homemade Mod Podge. I'll put that link down below in the description and you can check that video out and see the recipe for it. It works really well for this type of project. It doesn't work well if you're going to be doing a photo or a graphic transfer, but for big decoupage projects, it works fantastic and you can save a lot of money by making your own and not having to buy a big bottle of Mod Podge. So I'm just swirling this one around the same as the other. This one is a little bit thinner than the regular Mod Podge, so it swirls really well and covers that whole inside. You're gonna just drip it into this little plastic container and let it drip out, and then I'll put it in my cup and let it sit for about 15 or 20 minutes. This is the polyacrylic. I've let it sit for about 15 minutes and it started to go a little bit translucent. I've got another little paper funnel. I'm gonna put the funnel in, and this is just glitter that I picked up at the dollar store. It works perfect. It works best if you have a fine glitter, but if you have the other more coarse glitter on hand, it will work also. And you just wanna pour it in. Don't be shy. You can use lots because you can always dump it out afterwards if you have any extra. And then you're just going to just kind of swirl it around so it covers the whole ornament. You can see, and as it dries, it'll go translucent and you'll see the glitter on the inside. You can hold it over your glitter container and the extra will dump out back into it so we don't waste it. And if you need to add a little bit more, because as you can see, I didn't get any up in here, just put the funnel back in and add some more. Now there is also a fourth technique that I've seen a lot of people use, and that's using furniture polish and the liquid type. And I have used it before. It works really well, but when I went to my dollar store, I couldn't find any to show you guys to compare it. But that is another option to try if you want to make some glittered ornaments. And I think I've got this one covered pretty good. I'm going to give it one more real good dump of glitter in there. And you can also put your thumb over the top, give it a real good shake, and that will cover it really well also. I'm going to dump in the extra, and then you're just going to set this aside, and probably it'll take until tomorrow to dry completely. You kind of want to set it so it's standing up so the air can get into the inside and dry it properly, but set it aside, don't touch it, and then you can finish decorating it however you want. Next one we're going to do is the homemade Mod Podge. Same thing. I'm just going to reuse the same funnel that I used from the last one because it'll work just fine. I've got some white fine glitter. I'm going to dump a whole bunch in there. Shake it right down in. And then swirl it around. And you can always shake it if you want to also, and you can coat over that whole thing. Now this needs a little bit more. Actually, I probably should have made a new funnel because this one was kind of wet from the last one. So I'm making a bit of a mess on this one, but that's okay. I was trying to save paper and not be wasteful, and it didn't work out for me, but that's okay. I'm gonna give it a good shake again. And that's coated really well. I'm gonna, same thing, set it aside in the cup, facing up so the air can get in it and dry it really well. The last one we're gonna do is the Mod Podge. Now I do find the Mod Podge is really thick and it takes a lot longer to dry and go a translucent color. If you're going to use that, sometimes it's not a bad idea to maybe put a little tiny bit of water in it to dilute it a little bit to help it swirl around the ornament a little bit better. But I wanted to show you today how it was going to turn out just using straight Mod Podge. I've got a brand new funnel this time, so we don't have a disaster. Although, see, we still have a disaster. I don't do anything unless it's messy. I craft messy. My end result is always fantastic, but holy doodle, I am messy sometimes. Swirl it around. I like to give it a really good shake. And this one is going to look really cloudy until it really dries completely with the Mod Podge. But I've got it completely covered really well, giving it a really good shake. Pour out the extra back in the container. I predict I'm going to have glitter on my face and in my ears by the end of this project, but it'll be worth it. Okay, that's all done. We're going to set it aside and let it dry. I've got all 3 ornaments all dried the next day. This is my homemade Mod Podge, and it turned out really well, nice and glittery with the white sparkle. And I've added some graphics on each of these with my Cricut. Works really well. These make fantastic gifts and projects for the kids to do too. This is the one that I used the polyacrylic sealer on. A really nice glitter on that one also. And then this is the one that I used the Mod Podge. This is probably the one that I'm not the happiest with. I've used this before, had the same outcome. It's just a little bit too thick to swirl around. And I always get like this white cloudy look, but I wanted to show you guys today what happens. You could water your Mod Podge down a little bit and it would probably eliminate some of that white cloudiness. I think it looks okay for this one though. It kind of looks like snow, and I added the Believe graphic on it. Also, if you can get your hands on some liquid furniture polish, that works really well too. Probably as good as the polyacrylic, but like I said before, I couldn't find any in my dollar store when I was there today to show you that one. So grab some plastic or glass ornaments. Give this technique a try. Okay, today I'm going to show you how you can make cinnamon Christmas ornaments, and these smell so delicious and they're so easy to make with simple ingredients. All you need is some applesauce, some cinnamon, some Elmer school glue or any type of school glue will work, and a mixing bowl. I'm just going to do a small batch to show you, but you can always double the batch with the recipe if you want to make more ornaments. I'll have a picture at the end of the video that you can screenshot of the recipe and save it to your photos, so you can go back and reference to it to make some for yourself. So we have half a cup of applesauce, and then we're going to use half a cup of cinnamon, and you can also add a little bit of nutmeg or pumpkin pie spice, whatever you want. Oh, there you go. See how messy I am? Right off the bat, already made a mess. But you can use any other spices too to add into it. So half a cup of cinnamon, half a cup of applesauce. And now you want to add in 1 tablespoon of school glue. And then once you've added your school glue, you're going to mix it all together really, really well. We're going to incorporate it all together, and it should, when you're finished mixing it all together, it should have the consistency of like cookie dough or like Play-Doh, and all to come together and form a ball. Just takes a few minutes of mixing to get it all combined. If you're finding that you're not getting that consistency, you can always add a little bit more applesauce, or you can add a little bit of cinnamon. You can adjust the recipe a little bit. I think mine needs a little bit more cinnamon just to thicken it up a little bit, so I'm going to add some more. I've added a little bit more cinnamon. Just going to mix it all up together. And my craft room is already smelling so delicious. Now you can see how that's forming a ball and coming away from the glass, and that's exactly what you want. We got it mixed up really well. Okay, we've got it all rolled into a ball, and we're ready to put it on some parchment paper. And then I'm going to put another piece of parchment paper on top of it, and then I'm just going to start to roll it out. You want it about 1/4 of an inch thick. If you make it too thin, when it dries, you find that it kind of will curl up on you, and if you leave it too thick, it takes a long time to dry out. So what I like to do, I have little wooden slats that are about 1/4 of an inch, and I like to put it beside what I'm rolling out, and it's like a guide, and it'll take it to the exact width that you want your dough to be. I like using this trick with my air dry clay also. And then once we get that all consistent, then we're ready to start cutting out some shapes. I've got it all rolled out right to the thickness that I want. Now, this doesn't rise, it doesn't change shape. Whatever it looks like right now is how it's going to look when it's dried. So this has a little bit of wrinkling in it from my parchment paper. I'm just kind of smoothing it out with my hands and my fingers just to make it nice and smooth, so it looks nice when they're all dry. I love when I'm out thrifting, when I find vintage cookie cutters. You can find some really neat shapes, and I just collect them, put them in little bowls, and then at Christmas time I display them out. I'm going to use a couple of these to cut my cinnamon ornaments. I'm going to cut a pretty snowflake, and then I'm going to do a really pretty Christmas tree, and a pretty flower, I love this texture on this one. I can fit that in right here. And a little star. And I think I have room for another, yep, the flower will fit right in this one here. I'm just gonna peel away all the extra dough, and I'm gonna leave it right on this piece of parchment paper and transfer it over to a baking sheet. And I'm going to put it in the oven at 200 degrees. It probably will take a couple hours to dry them out. If you don't want to use the oven, you can also leave them out to dry in the air, and it probably will take a day or two for them to dry completely. I've got these all laid out on a parchment paper, on a cookie sheet. I've got my oven preheating to 200, and I'm going to set them in there and let them dry. I'm just using a stainless steel straw just to punch some holes in the top so we can put some strings through it when they're all dry. And there we go, we're all ready. It's the next day and my ornaments are all dry, and oh my goodness, they smell so yummy. I don't like to decorate them. I like just to keep them just this kind of rustic look, but you can take some acrylic paint and you can paint them, and then you can seal them with some Mod Podge or with some polyacrylic, or just leave them. But I'm gonna put some of this festive kind of jute string that I have through them and put them on my Christmas tree. These are all finished, but my poor gingerbread, he didn't make it. I think I might have rolled it just a little bit too thin, and he lost his head, but that's okay. If I make another batch, I'll get another gingerbread man made. So try this recipe with your kids. It is so much fun. They smell so delicious, and it's so easy. Today I'm going to show you how you can decorate the inside of your plastic ornaments with acrylic paint. It's really simple and really easy. This will also work on glass ornaments if you have them, and you can pick and choose your colors and swirl them, and they turn out just so beautiful. And then you can personalize them afterwards or just leave them. Perfect gifts or just to hang on your Christmas tree. So we're going to get started with the first step. I'm going to use 3 colors in this first one. This is just acrylic paint that I picked up at the dollar store. Any type of paint will work. And what I like to do is mix in a little bit of polyacrylic sealer. So you're going to take the lid off of your plastic bauble, just set them aside, and you want to take your acrylic paint, put some in the dish. Probably I've got about a tablespoon, and then I'm going to take a tablespoon of polyacrylic sealer and mix those two together. So it's kind of equal amounts. 1 part acrylic paint and 1 part acrylic sealer. And then you're just going to mix it together really, really well. This helps it flow better in your ornament. Next color, we're going to use this lavender. Same thing, about a tablespoon. It doesn't have to be completely accurate, just kind of eyeball it, and then equal amounts of the polyacrylic, mix them together really well. I'm just using a little wooden skewer to mix them together. That blends it in good. That one's ready, and then we'll just go on to our last color. We're going to use Tutti Frutti. It's a really pink color, about a tablespoon. And then a tablespoon of the polyacrylic. Mix it all together really well again. And then we're ready to put it in our ornament and start swirling. These are so cute and so easy to do. And it's also a really great DIY to do with your kids. I have all 3 colors all mixed together really well with a polyacrylic. And you're just going to take your ornament and you just want to pour a little bit in. And we're going to layer the colors. So I'm going to put some pink in, and then I'm going to put some white in, and then I'm going to put some of this purple in, and then layer some more pink. The more layers, the more swirl of the different colors you'll have in the ornaments. And I think I'll just put a little bit more of that purple in. And now we're ready to swirl. So we've got all those different colors. Now comes the fun part. You just start swirling around and look at the colors that come. And the polyacrylic allows it to flow a lot better if you just use the acrylic paint by itself. And if for some reason you find you don't have enough paint, you can always add a little bit more if you need to. And when you come down to the neck of it, always have a little piece of paper towel because you can drip onto that and not make a mess. And you just keep swirling around until everything is covered and you're left with the gorgeous ornament. I've got that swirled all the way around, and you're gonna have some extra paint on the inside. So what I like to do, I like to get a little paper cup and put that ornament right in the paper cup and let it drip out. Set it aside for about 10 or 15 minutes. Now we're gonna do a second one. I'm gonna use some different colors. I'm gonna use peacock blue. This is a beautiful color of blue. I had some white left over from the other one, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more to it. And I'm gonna use bright yellow. These colors that I'm using are really nice and bright and fun. I'm gonna turn these ornaments into little keepsakes for my nieces, so I think they'll like the bright colors. And a tablespoon in each one. I'm gonna put a little bit more into this white one, mix them all together, and then we're gonna be ready to swirl. I'm gonna just use my little stick to mix it all together really well. And like I said before, I've tried just using the acrylic paint and it does work okay, but by adding a little bit of that polyacrylic sealer, it just helps it flow a little bit better. I've got everything all mixed up. Now we're just gonna pour a little bit in and layer up those colors and get ready to swirl it. And you can put as much or as little. Every ornament is going to turn out a little bit different in a different pattern. So just kind of have fun with it. Mix and match your colors, mix and match how much you put in, and just see what you get. Add a little bit more yellow on top of that one. And then I think I'm going to swirl it. I think that'll be pretty good. I love watching the swirl pattern come. Isn't that so neat? And just kind of take your time and just roll the paint along inside of that. If you find you don't have enough, you can always add a little bit more. And I don't think I did put enough in, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more. If you find you're having a hard time getting the paint out of your little container, you can always use a little popsicle stick and kind of ease it out that way too. And some blue, put another splash of white, and I think that will be perfect. All right, let's swirl that up again. Oh yeah, that's perfect. That's covering really well. And you can see how it blends in and gives all the different colors. And you can go one way and then turn it around and go the other way. Don't drop it on the floor like I just about did. And always have a paper towel underneath to catch any of the drips as you're rolling it along. I had a bunch of paint left over, so I swirled them all together. Just took my skewer, just kind of mixed them a little bit so it kind of blended them. And I'm just gonna pour that in, and it gives all kinds of different colors all mixed up in one. And that's kind of a neat little different effect that you can do too. Look at the colors in that. Isn't that fantastic? And here, this is a project that you can get so creative with, and I think it would be really neat to do hockey colors for hockey teams or sport teams, and you could do the colors coordinating with their teams and then put their names on it. That would make a fantastic gift. I just think it's so much fun putting all kinds of different colors together and just seeing what you end up with. This one has got some really neat swirls in it. See that? You can use up all your little bits and pieces of paint that you have laying around too, using this technique. I'm gonna do one last one because this is so much fun with some Christmas colors. I've got some red acrylic. I'm just gonna put in a tablespoon of the polyacrylic to help it flow a bit better. I've got some gold, spun gold. I'm gonna mix that in. Gonna do some Christmas green and just squirt some of that in. And then I'm just gonna take my skewer and just kind of swirl it around. Don't completely mix those colors together. You want those swirls in it. Just so it kind of looks like that. Now we're ready to pour it in the Christmas ornament. I probably should have some paper towel underneath me, but I already made my last one a complete mess. So we're gonna cross our fingers I don't make a huge mess on this one. And we're just gonna swirl. And look at all that red and green and gold all through that. This is a fantastic Christmas ornament. Roll it up to the front. And then we're gonna let it sit in the container and drip out all the extra. Okay, so each of these ornaments, I let them drain for about 15 minutes in cups so all the extra paint flows out of it. And then you just wanna set them aside, kind of upright, and let the air get into it and let them dry overnight. And then we're ready to finish them off. Okay, it's the next day and my ornaments are all finished. I got my Cricut out and I personalized each of these ornaments. I made one for each of my nieces and nephews. And I just love the swirled color in all of these. Now they do, as they dry, the colors lighten up a little bit, but you still have such a neat swirled effect. You can try so many different colors with these and get creative. I love the brown and the blue in this one. So grab some plastic ornaments the next time you're out and about and give this technique a try and use up some of your acrylic paints. DIY, you're going to need some borax. I grabbed mine off of Amazon. I'll put the link down below in the description. You'll need some wooden skewers, a big measuring cup, and a small measuring cup. I picked up all of this at the thrift store, some poinsettias, some star ornaments, and some icicles. And these are all going to have a glittery, gorgeous feel when they're all finished. I've boiled my kettle full of hot water. The measurements for this recipe are 1/3 of borax to 2 cups of water. So I'm doing 6 cups of boiling water. So I'm gonna add 3 of these 1/3 scoops of borax. You can mix the amount for how many ornaments you want to do, but when you're doing it, you want to make sure you're mixing enough that you could submerge your ornaments that you want to sparkle. Once you've poured your borax into the hot water, stir it really well. Make sure it's all mixed and melted into that water. The first one I'm going to do in this pickle jar, I'm filling it right up to the top. I'm taking a wooden skewer and I'm just going to hang those icicle ornaments right from that wooden skewer. And then we're going to put them into the pickle jar, making sure they're completely submerged in the solution. One thing I ran into in the past is you have to make sure that your ornaments have enough weight to soak into the solution. I've picked some ornaments up before and they were too lightweight and they floated on the top and it didn't work. So these icicles are going to work perfect. We're going to submerge them, set them aside. We're going to let them sit till tomorrow. For these poinsettias, I'm just going to soak them, let them soak down into the bottom of this measuring cup, And also we're gonna set them aside until tomorrow. Now you'll start to see the crystals or the glitter start to appear in a few hours, but I like to leave mine overnight so I can get all kinds of glitter on them. Now these stars are what I was talking about they don't soak down. So I'm going to lay them on the top, and then after about 6 hours, I'm gonna flip them over and do the other side so I can get glitter on both sides of those ornaments. Now grab some coffee filters, and we're going to turn these into snowflakes. I'm just folding it into itself about 3 or 4 times, and then I'm going to take my scissors, go back to school, and remember how you used to make snowflakes, and just cut out some patterns out of this coffee filter. Now borax is a cleaning product, and I actually have no idea the chemistry behind this and why it crystallizes after time on these projects. I just think they're absolutely beautiful, and I wanted to share this technique with you. Now, once you've gotten all of your shapes cut out of your coffee filter, you can open it up and you can see you have created a beautiful snowflake. So I'm going to do 2 of these, and then we'll do the borax hack to make them nice and glittery and crystallize them. We're now ready to work on these snowflakes. I've got 2 cups of boiling hot water. We're going to add 1/3 of a cup of borax, and we're going to incorporate it together really well, making sure that it's all dissolved. I've got a baking sheet. I'm pouring that mixture over top of those coffee filters, making sure they're completely covered. And you can see I have a little bit of borax in the bottom that I didn't get incorporated, but I think I've got enough in the solution that it's going to work perfect. Now we're going to set this aside until tomorrow, and I'll show you the results. So here are our icicle ornaments, and you can see all the crystallizing on them. They're beautiful, they're glittery, and I think they look so much better than just those plastic icicles. I'm going to put them on a piece of paper towel and spread them out and let them dry completely. And our little stars are done. Now these are really hard to see on camera, but there are sparkly little glitter all over these. I flipped them halfway through, and they're just beautiful. But these poinsettias are gorgeous. Look at the crystallizing, the little sparkle, the glitter on them. They're beautiful. What a great way to perk up some really dull florals. Now look at our coffee filter snowflakes. These are just beautiful. I actually like making these and using them as doilies, but you can put a string through them and hang them up, and they would be gorgeous too. And you could do all kinds of different sizes. And these all I have just let sit overnight for 24 hours. Here's our beautiful coffee filter snowflakes. And I've put this one as a doily on my little table, and I think it's just absolutely beautiful. My star ornaments look gorgeous on my tree. That sparkle now from the borax. But I am blown away by how well these floral poinsettias turned out. They just took them to the next level. We can add these into a floral arrangement. We can tuck them into our tree. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, after you've done this borax Christmas ornament hack on your ornaments, it's a good idea to seal them up with some polyacrylic sealer because they are very fragile and the crystals will drop off, especially on these ornaments like this. So if you have some polyacrylic sealer, give it 2 or 3 coats to seal it all in, and they will last forever. I always save them after I would have been given a gift, or if Christmas morning there's bags all over the place, I always collect them all and repurpose them or re-gift to somebody else. Today I'm going to show you 10 ways that you can upcycle these Christmas bags into things that aren't Christmas bags. There's something different. So if your stash is just getting way too big and you're trying to find different ways that you can use up some of these Christmas bags, I've got some fantastic ideas. I've got this wooden disc that I painted with some chalk paint, but I really loved this Santa on front of this bag, so I'm going to cut it out a little bit bigger than that wooden disc. Now these bags are quite thick, so I'm going to show you how you can make them thinner and make them easier to decoupage with so your project will look better. Get out your packing tape and put the packing tape along the back of your image. Use your card to press down really well to get rid of any bubbles and wrinkles, and then take off that packing tape, and it's going to take off a layer of that paper on that gift bag and make it thinner and more easy to work with. Also seen me do this technique on scrapbooking paper, and it just opens up your options of using all that pretty paper that you have in your stash if you want to decoupage it. If you were going to decoupage this when it's really thick, it would bubble and wrinkle really easy. So there we have our image of Santa, nice and thin. We're going to get out our Mod Podge mat and we're going to decoupage it to the front of this piece of wood. Now, don't put on too much Mod Podge. If you're putting on too much, it's going to bubble and wrinkle. You just need a light coat over the entire piece, and you want to make sure that you're getting it right out to the edges. And then we're just going to pick up our image, center it exactly where we want it, and then press out any bubbles or wrinkles. Don't run to the dollar store and buy brand new bags if you don't have a stash. You can go to the thrift store, and a lot of times I'll see a big bag full of gift bags, and you can repurpose those, and they're really affordable. I got out my brayer and I'm just really pressing that in. Gonna let it dry completely, and then once it's dry, I've got a little piece of sandpaper and I'm just gonna sand around the edges. It's gonna give a little bit of a rustic touch to it, and we've created a really beautiful piece of Christmas decor with a scrap piece of wood and a Christmas bag. And how adorable is this? Next DIY that you can do with a Christmas bag is make your own card and envelope. I always save these little tags and the little strings. I'll use those on another Christmas project, so don't throw those out either. And I'm going to open this bag right up, cutting off the top and down the side and cutting off the bottom. Sometimes those bags get a little bit ratty after using them 3 or 4 times, so this is a great way to repurpose them, and you can cut off those bits that are wrecked and turn them into a couple cards and envelopes. I have a full tutorial on how to make DIY envelopes. I'll put the link to that down below in the description because it's really detailed. But what you want to do is you want to cut a piece of that gift bag in a square. As long as it's 10 by 10, 8 by 8, it doesn't matter. It just depends on how big you want your envelope to be. You can customize it. And I'm just going to cut it so it's a perfect square, and then we're going to start folding. If you don't have any Christmas bags, again, you can always use just a piece of Christmas scrapbooking paper to do this DIY. Now you're going to take those 2 corners and put them right in the middle. Press down that crease. You can also use a bone folder to make a nice crisp line. Envelopes are so easy to make from any type of paper, and once you get the hang of it, you'll have so many you won't know what to do with them. And then you're going to bring the bottom up to the top. We're going to use a ruler. We're going to put a crease in it, and then we're going to fold it under. We're getting really close to having this envelope done, and these are so pretty to put together from leftover gift bags. Once we have them all creased really well, we're going to now fold down that top flap of the envelope, making a crease, and then we're going to fold it down, and then we're ready to glue it all together. That's how easy it is to put an envelope together. Now this is my favorite paper crafting glue. I'll put a link to it down below in the description. We're going to put a little bit on the inside of that flap and along the edges of that envelope. Once you have it all on, we're going to fold that flap down and fold up that other piece, and we basically have put an envelope together that quickly. Now we want to make a card for the inside, so I'm just going to measure the size of the envelope, and then we're going to double that so we can fold it over into a card and it's going to fit into the envelope. Here's another really cute DIY that you can do using some gift bags. This is a really cute little one. I love the reindeer on it. We're going to take the bag apart, taking out the bottom, and we're going to cut out those two panels that have the reindeer on them. Once we have those cut out, we are going to make some bookmarks. These are really popular to put in a stocking or to add as a little gift tag on a gift. I'm using my glue stick. We're going to glue those two pieces together so we have the image on the front and the back. And then I'm going to measure how big I want my bookmark, and then I'm going to use my paper cutter. I'm going to be able to get 2 bookmarks out of this bag. Now I'm using the packing tape, and that's going to seal it up and give you a more durable bookmark. I'm going to put some on the front and the back, making sure that they're completely sealed. So when you're cutting your bookmarks, make sure they're a little bit tinier than the width of the packing tape. Once I have that all done, we're going to trim around the edges and get rid of all of that extra tape that we don't need. We're going to get a paper punch, and we're going to punch a hole in the top, and then we're going to add a festive ribbon, or we can add some twine, however you want to finish it off. I've got this really pretty striped twine, and I'm going to add it to the top of the bookmarks. And this is a really great way to repurpose a gift bag and turn it into 2 beautiful bookmarks that somebody would love to get in their stocking. Another gift bag and another beautiful image. I love the Santa on this bag. We're going to cut it out, and we're going to turn this into a postcard. I'm going to use some of my junk journaling skills to put a postcard together that you can tuck into a Christmas gift, or you could even mail it if you wanted to. And you can never have enough gift tags. I actually found this punch at a thrift store years ago. I use it so much. I make gift tags for everything with scrap paper that I have laying around. I'm just going to punch these out of a gift bag that I saved, put a hole in the top, run some twine through. You can write on the back. Fantastic gift tags. Another gift bag that I had that has the same image on the front and the back. We're going to deconstruct, take all the ribbon out. We're going to save that for another project. Or you can even use these to use on the top of your tags that we just created in that other project. We're going to cut it out, and we're going to make placemats. Really fun DIY to do with kids if they want to have some placemats to do some Christmas crafts at the table, or just to set up your table and put your dinnerware on top of it, and it just adds that festive feel. I'm going to iron it a little bit so they're nice and flat, and then I'm going to get out my page protector. I always find this at the dollar store, and it's really great for projects like this because it's going to seal this up and allow it to be wiped down with a damp rag if you need to. If you're using it with food at your table, you're just going to cut that page protector just a little tiny bit bigger than that image that we cut out of the bag. And then once we have it cut out for the front and the back, we're going to peel away that page protector and then really carefully lay it on top of that piece of the bag that we cut out. You want to make sure you have it just overhanging just a little tiny bit so it makes a nice edge and smooth out any bubbles and wrinkles. Just take your time while you're peeling it off. And you can imagine the possibilities with so many gift bags that you can turn into beautiful placemats to add at your table at Christmas time. I love the pattern on this gift bag, and again, we're going to deconstruct it, take out the ribbons, and we're going to cut it open so it's one large bag. And then I'm going to take the bottom piece, that bottom piece of cardboard from the bottom of the bag, and I'm going to cut a triangle out of it. We're going to use that as a template. The fun thing with all of these projects is they can be used for any holiday. You have Easter bags, you can make one of these projects. You have birthday bags, you can make one of these projects. And that's what I love about being able to upcycle all of these and not get thrown out. There's so many different ways that we can use them. I've got these cut out, and then we're going to take our triangle template and we're going to just cut out a whole bunch of triangles. Once I have all those triangles cut out, we're going to hold them all together with a paper clamp, and then we're going to get our hole punch, and we're going to punch 2 holes in the top of each triangle. And we're going to do this to each triangle, and then we're going to string some twine through these, and we're going to turn these into a beautiful garland that you can hang over top of a door or on a mantle. So many possibilities, and you've got beautiful paper from a used gift bag that you can turn this into. Another great way to upcycle some gift bags or repurpose it is just use it as gift wrap. I have this little box that's perfect for one of the panels from one of my gift bags, and I can just use some Scotch tape. I can tape it up and your gift is wrapped and you were able to reuse a gift bag. Got lots of brown paper bags. They turn into beautiful snowflakes. Cut them open, make them into one flat panel. Get your template to make snowflakes, or just get creative with the kids and you can make them all different. But this is a great way to use up some of those gift bags, and you can string through the top, hang them from your tree. So many possibilities, but it's a great way to upcycle these brown paper bags. And you can also use the gift bags that have patterns on them too, and they'll turn into beautiful snowflakes. This is just a super simple way to upcycle those gift bags, but so easy. Just take your bag apart if you've got a picture on a bag that you really love, and deconstruct your bag, cut out that picture, put it in a frame. Beautiful way to make new Christmas decor from a Christmas bag that you've upcycled or repurposed and saved. I hope you found some inspiration here and you've got some Christmas bags that you can turn into decor. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Let me know down in the comments which one was your favorite. Take care.